Welcome to the Event Answer Studio. I'm setting up for a Swiftie themed birthday party, and the highlight of this design is the friendship bracelet garland draped across the circle backdrop arch. To make the balloons look like bracelets, I organized them on the table, starting with the white balloons, which will be the letter beads, and then surrounded those with colored balloons laid out in patterns to make them look like bracelets. This will also help me keep the balloons in order so I don't mess up the pattern as I inflate them. The bracelets are made up of these 6-inch link balloons, and these have an added tail on the end which will allow us to tie them end to end in a long chain. I want each of these balloons to be nice and round, so make sure the tip of your pump is in the bulb portion of the balloon, and then fill it with 2 pumps of air from a hand pump or until it's about 3 inches in diameter. Then tie the balloon off with the knot right up against the round portion of the balloon. Inflate the next balloon in the exact same way and then tie the 2 nozzles together, making sure you pull the 2 balloons tight against each other before you tie it in a double knot. I'm going to inflate the next 2 balloons to 2 pumps of air as well, but I want to show you a faster tying method for these. So inflate the first one to 2 pumps of air and then hold the nozzle under one of your fingers that's holding onto the pump while you inflate the second balloon to 2 pumps of air. Then we're going to tie 1 single knot. Overlap the nozzles of these 2 balloons, pulling them nice and snug so that the round portions of each balloon are touching each other, and then tie the nozzles in a knot. This allows us to join the 2 balloons together with 1 single knot instead of 3. Now you're going to take the 4 balloons you've inflated and tie them end to end using the tail ends of those link balloons. Just like you tied the nozzles, pull them nice and tight so the round portions are touching each other and tie those tails in a double knot. From here, you're going to continue inflating link balloons, tying them into pairs, and then tying that new pair onto the chain of balloons you've already started. The only exception to this is once you get to the white balloons. These I'm inflating with 4 pumps of air, or to about 4.5 inches in diameter. You're going to tie these into pairs with all of the other balloons and attach it to the chain, but we want to make sure that the white ones are slightly larger so that they stand out and there's extra room for our vinyl letters to adhere to them later on. Once I finished both of my chains of balloons, I then wanted to clean up the look by trimming away the excess nozzles between balloons. I simply took a pair of scissors and trimmed away the nozzle ends. Now I did go ahead and leave the tail ends alone because they're a little tinier and I didn't feel like they were an issue, but if it bothers you, you can also trim those away as well. Just make sure you don't get too close to cutting your knots. Now it's time to apply the vinyl letters to the white balloons. I cut out some vinyl letters that are 2.5 inches tall from black removable vinyl, and I'm using press and seal as my transfer tape as it's a very low tack way to get my vinyl from the backing onto my balloon. If you don't have a vinyl cutter to cut your own letters, you can always purchase pre-cut letters that you would find in the poster board section of your local craft or office supply store. Center the vinyl letter right in the middle of each white balloon, making sure they're nice and straight compared to the nozzle and the tail of the balloon. I have found that it's easiest to place the center of the letter down first and then work out towards the edges, feathering out any bumps there may be. For instance, on the B here, the curved sections don't lay completely flat on the round balloons, so it's helpful to go and press down the center of the curve and then press down in the center of the bumps on either side of it. And that way, it's a more even distribution if there happens to be any wrinkles. As you continue to add letters, focus on making sure that they're centered in each individual balloon, and don't worry too much if one letter is rotated higher than the other. We'll straighten that all out once we attach it to the backdrop. Now it's time to inflate the balloons that will be sitting on the circle arch. I'm inflating 11-inch balloons anywhere between 6 and 10 inches in size to give the design a beautiful organic look. I'm going to press them against the table so that they're nice and round, and then tie them together in a pair by wrapping the nozzle around twice and tying them in a simple knot. Make a second pair in the exact same way, and then we're going to join them into a quad by overlapping them so that all the nozzles touch in the center, and then twist 1 balloon from each of those pairs around each other, locking them into a quad. I made 14 quads just like this, and then I made 4 more quads that were on the smaller side, only about 6 to 7 inches in diameter. I prepared the event space with some teal and white curtains set up on pipe and drape, and then in front of that I've added this iridescent blue sequin curtain as it's going to make the whole place shimmer. Now in front of all of these curtains I've got my 6.5-foot circle arch, but the gold color of the frame isn't going to work for this design, so any part of the frame that won't be covered in balloons I'm covering in white gaffer tape. In 12 to 18-inch sections I'm applying the tape to the front of the circle arch and then wrapping it around the frame. If you rip it at about the halfway point, the tape doesn't wrinkle quite so bad as it goes around the curve. On the upper left-hand side of the arch, I'm going to add my balloon quads, starting with one of those small quads. Now I'm going to slip this right where the white tape stops over the frame so that the frame is touching the nozzles of those balloons. Then you're going to take the two balloons with the frame in between them and twist them around each other, locking the quad to the frame. Attach one of the larger quads in the exact same way to the frame, and then you're going to nestle those two quads right next to each other so you don't have any major gaps. Then you can rotate the balloons of those quads around so you get a nice mix of colors sitting next to each other. In total, I added 4 quads to this upper left-hand section, starting with a small one, 2 large ones, and then following that up with another small one, so we get a beautiful tapered shape on the upper portion of the arch. I'm going to continue this process on the lower right-hand side, but first I want to tie on this 24-inch balloon to hide the feet of the arch. So I'm going to tie on an empty 260 balloon to the nozzle of that 24-incher, and then tie that 260 to the frame. The size of this balloon will not only hide the feet of the frame, but it'll give us some visual weight at the bottom of the arch. From here, I'll continue adding my 11-inch quads, but you'll notice that the lower curve of the arch is too close to the floor to add in the balloons. So to get around this, I'm going to tie an empty 260 balloon to the frame and then nestle my balloon on top of the frame and secure it in place with the tail ends of that 260 by wrapping it in a figure 8 around a couple of those balloons. I use this technique to secure 4 quads to the bottom of the arch, and then as I neared the foot on the right hand side, there was enough room to start adding my quads in the traditional method. If you want to up your party planning game, you should check out our ultimate bundle of balloon plans. I've got tons of written step-by-step instructions on how to build anything from arches to columns to walls, and when you buy the bundle, you get them at a significant discount. I'll have it linked in the description box below if you'd like to check it out. Once I started assembling this arch, I realized that the Lover album that I'm basing this design off of has some more vibrant pinks included in it. So I added these Tuftex pink balloons into my organic arch by simply tying 260 balloons onto the nozzles of those balloons and simply tied them into the arch anywhere I needed a pop of that brighter pink. For a little bit of an accent, I'm tying in these iridescent starburst balloons. This will give me a different shape in my balloon garland and repeat the iridescent colors of the sequin backdrop curtain, uniting the two elements together. Now it's time to add our link balloon bracelets to the backdrop. I'm going to hold the letters approximately where I want them to sit in the center of the arch, and then bring the tail end of those over to the balloons on the side, and gently nestle the link balloons between 2 of the balloons that are already attached to that arch to temporarily hold the bracelet balloons in place. Once both strands are up, I can take a step back and look at how they drape on the arch. I want both of them to kind of swag at the same pace and make sure that they're evenly distributed across the circle. Once I'm happy with their placement, it's time to permanently attach them to the garland and orient all of the letters to the front side of the arch. I'm going to do both of those things using some glue dashes. Where the link balloon touches one of the balloons attached to the circle arch, I'm going to place one of my glue dashes, remove the paper backing, and then squeeze those 2 balloons together so that they'll stay in place. Then I'm going to place another glue dash between the 2 link balloons right next to where they tie to keep them from rotating. I'm going to do the same thing between each link balloon, and that will hold them in orientation. This is especially important once you get to the vinyl letter balloons. I want to make sure the letters are facing out towards the front of the display before I squish them into the glue dash. With the letters secured in place, I'm going to add a little bit more drama to this by adding a couple of link balloons to the end of all those chains so that they have the chance to drape down the front of the design. Some of these I let dangle straight down, and others I kind of guided over balloons and secure them in place with a couple more glue dashes. Along the bottom of the arch, I want to fill in any gaps I have with these mini balloon clusters. These are 5-inch balloons I inflated to 4 pumps of air, or about 4.5 inches in diameter, tied them into quads, and then attached one of those quads to each end of a 260 balloon. To add these onto the arch, I simply stretch that 260 tight, wrap it around a balloon or 2 that's already in the garland, and then nestle those tiny balloons anywhere I have a hole or need a bit more color and texture. And now this friendship bracelet backdrop is ready for a Swiftie party. If you enjoyed this setup, you should check out this video. And until the next time, remember, stay creative, everybody.